From Europe to Asia, tensions are rising across the globe, with multiple major military forces provoking and posturing on an increasingly regular basis, raising fears of a serious international conflict in the not-too-distant future. The latest incident of this kind has occurred in Japan, where Chinese and Russian warships have been surrounding Japan. It's a move that sent ripples of concern not just throughout Tokyo, but all the way to Washington DC too. So here's a look at what's really happening and what it all might mean. On September 16, the Joint Staff of Japan's Defense Ministry posted on X to reveal that a Russian ship had been sailing along the eastern coast of Honshu, which is the largest part of Japan's 4 main islands, for the past month. On September 9th, it was confirmed that a Russian Navy Vishnya-class intelligence gathering vessel was sailing within the contiguous waters of Miyako and heading southwest within the contiguous waters between Mukarajima and Hachijojima. Furthermore, it was confirmed that between September 13th and 15th, the vessel sailed within the contiguous waters from east to south of Okinawa Island, then from the south of Okinawa Island to southwest of Kumejima, and then headed towards the East China Sea. The Ministry of Defense and the Self-Defense Forces will continue to conduct vigilance, surveillance, and intelligence gathering. The ship in question has been identified as the Kurily, one of 7 Vishnya-class naval intelligence collection ships. It was built back in the 1980s during the days of the Soviet Union and is part of Russia's Pacific Fleet. Measuring up at over 300 feet in length, with a displacement of 3,470 tons and a top speed of 16 knots or 18.5 miles per hour, this is a big ship. It's equipped with an extensive and advanced array of signals intelligence equipment, including numerous sensors that collect information from their surrounding environment to transmit back to shore via satellite. Since the Kurily also has a pair of large radomes with satellite link antennas inside them. And despite being built for intelligence purposes, ships like this also have some offensive capabilities to defend themselves should the need ever arise. They're fitted with 2 AK-630 rotary cannons for firing on any anti-ship missiles or even enemy aircraft in the area, as well as SA-N8 surface-to-air SAM missile launchers. According to a map shared by the Japanese authorities, the Kurily traveled through the Tsugaru Strait, situated north of Honshu, after departing from Russia's Far East. It then followed a course southward and eventually arrived near the outlying islands situated down towards the southwestern region of Japan. Then, from September 13 through to 15, the Kurily continued south from Japan's Okinawa Island, leaving the Philippine Sea, which is part of the Western Pacific Ocean, and moving into the East China Sea. Japan, as confirmed by its defense ministry, has deployed both sea and air assets to monitor the Russian vessel and gather intelligence about its movements. A single Russian ship is a worry, but may not have been such a troubling prospect if it was alone. Unfortunately, it wasn't. No fewer than 4 Chinese naval ships were also seen operating near Japan in recent days and weeks. Again, there's a tweet from the Joint Staff of Japan's Defense Ministry providing further details about this. On September 13, 2 Chinese Navy Luoyang 3 class guided missile destroyers were spotted sailing southwest through the waters between Okinawa Island and Miyako Island, heading toward the Pacific Ocean. Additionally, on September 14, we confirmed that the Chinese Navy's Jiangkai 2 class frigate and Fuji class supply ship sailed southwest through the waters between Okinawa Island and Miyako Island, heading toward the Pacific Ocean. Furthermore, on September 16, it was confirmed that the Chinese Navy's Luoyang 3 class guided missile destroyer sailed north through the waters between Okinawa Island and Miyako Island, heading toward the East China Sea. The Ministry of Defense and the Self-Defense Forces will continue to conduct vigilance, surveillance, and intelligence gathering. That's 2 guided missile destroyers, a supply ship, and a frigate, all passing through the famous Miyako Strait, which separates Japan's Miyako Island and Okinawa Island. The strait is one of the few international waterways available to China's People's Liberation Army Navy to access the Pacific Ocean, and it's not uncommon to see Chinese ships passing through this area. However, the presence of 2 huge warships is still a cause for concern, especially since they showed up around the exact same time as the Russian spy vessel. Russia and China have appeared to grow closer in recent times, culminating in a much publicized meeting between the leaders of the two countries, Presidents Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, in early September. During that meeting, a military parade took place, in which China unveiled some groundbreaking military technologies, including laser weapons, nuclear ballistic missiles, and even huge underwater drones. It was one of many recent shows of power from China, which has been building up its naval forces to become the biggest in the world and expanding its army too. Fears have therefore been rising across parts of Asia and around the Western world that China may be preparing some sort of major military action like a takeover of Taiwan. Russia too, despite being embroiled in an increasingly costly war in Ukraine, has shown increasing signs of aggression. It's been spending more and more on its military, investing in new technologies, and even sending drones into NATO airspace in recent days, with some experts fearing a serious military escalation on the horizon. The fact that both of these countries have strengthened ties in recent times and appear to be carrying out coordinated naval activities around Japan is a real cause for concern. To make matters worse, this is far from the only time Russian and Chinese military vessels have been observed drifting dangerously close to Japanese waters. Back in June, reports also emerged from the Japanese Defense Ministry of the spy ship Kurily being seen in the Sea of Japan, heading through the Vishnya Strait towards the Sea of Okhotsk, which separates Japan's northernmost island, Hokkaido, from the Sakhalin Island in Russia. Just 2 days after that, a Chinese spy ship, identified as the Xing, was seen travelling from the East China Sea into the Philippine Sea, not far from Japan's southernmost island, Kyushu. Neither of these vessels were operating illegally. They were both passing through official international waterways, and neither of them were reported to have entered Japan's territorial waters. However, yet again, the timing and the nature of the ships involved raises doubts about China and Russia's true intentions. It's also worrying that the spy ships showed up around the same time that the US aircraft carrier, USS George Washington, was being deployed and leaving its home port of Yokosuka Naval Base not far from Tokyo. Some analysts have suggested that China was seizing the opportunity to spy on the USS George Washington, though there may have been a less concerning explanation behind its movements. In August too, submarines from Russia and China were actually seen sailing alongside one another in the Sea of Japan. This was the first time ever that the two countries participated in a joint submarine patrol, and it involved two Kilo-class subs, supported by a surface warship and separate submarine rescue ships. The Russian sub was the RFS Volkov, while China's was believed to be the Great Wall 210, though its official identity was not confirmed since it spent a large part of the journey submerged even when the Russian sub came to the surface. The pair travelled through the Sea of Japan before moving into the East China Sea and then heading home to their respective bases. Their journey took place shortly after annual Russian-Chinese military exercises called Maritime Interaction 2025 in Russia and Joint Sea 2025 in China. These exercises involved Russian Navy and People's Liberation Armed Navy forces carrying out drills in Vladivostok, Russia, as well as the Sea of Japan in the early days of August. Various warships and other vessels were involved and rehearsed a range of drills and activities. Both countries issued statements about the exercises, with the Russian Navy Pacific Fleet stating, "The exercise is defensive in nature and is not directed against other countries." China's Defense Ministry, meanwhile, said the joint operation with Russia was focused on further deepening the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two nations. This sort of thing has been going on for quite some time now. In fact, it was in 2021 that Russia and China began joint naval patrols, with their vessels often seen together in the waters off the coast of Japan's islands. The very first patrol involved a sizable flotilla of 10 ships sailing not far from Japan's Honshu and Kyushu islands, with multiple destroyers and other warships involved. This was seen by many in Japan and elsewhere as a provocative act, with both Russia and China refuting any suggestions of provocation or intimidation. A Chinese Ministry of National Defense statement issued at the time said, "During the cruise, the joint formation strictly abided by the relevant provisions of international law and did not enter the territorial waters of other countries. This joint maritime cruise aims to further develop the China-Russia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership in the new era, enhance the joint action capabilities of both parties, and jointly maintain international and regional strategic stability. Every year since then, Japan has had to contend with and keep a close eye on Chinese and Russian warships, submarines, frigates, and more sailing by. Both of these two major military powers have also grown closer, with Putin in 2023 saying that the bilateral relationship between China and Russia had reached a point without limitations. He went on to state, "We have reached an unprecedented level of trust in our political dialogue. Our strategic cooperation has become truly comprehensive in nature and is standing on the brink of a new era." If recent events are anything to go by, that relationship has only gotten more solid since then, and the latest sightings of Chinese and Russian warships so close to Japan is therefore even more troubling than any previous incident like this, because it could be the start of something much bigger and far more devastating for the world as it's known today. Of course, it isn't possible to know with any degree of certainty why, exactly, the Russian and Chinese ships were in that area at that time. However, there are some strong theories floating around. One of those theories is based on the fact that US and Japanese forces are currently conducting military exercises together. To be more precise, they're involved in exercise Resolute Dragon 25, which involves Marine Expeditionary Forces and other military personnel carrying out a range of drills and preparedness exercises in intense conditions. Marines and sailors were tasked, for example, with setting up and operating a fully functional command post in extremely intense and difficult conditions at the Combat Town training site on Camp Hansen in Okinawa, Japan. This is exactly what Marines might have to do should a major conflict break out in the Pacific region, and they need to be as efficient and effective as possible, as even minor delays or mistakes could be the difference between life and death or victory and failure. Master Gunnery Sergeant Andy Anderson, Operations Chief, summed up the aim of this part of the exercise. "It's more than just an exercise. It's a demonstration of III-MEF's commitment to maintaining a high state of readiness and our ability to operate effectively in any environment. We want our allies and partners to understand that III-MEF is actively preparing to meet the challenges of the 21st century security landscape." Resolute Dragon 25 also involved demonstrations of ship-sinking weapon systems, like the US Typhon missile system and Japan's Type 12 surface-to-ship missile system. The Typhon is a mid-range land-based weapon that can launch two different types of missiles: the Standard Missile 6, which has a range of 290 miles, and the Tomahawk, with a range of 1,000 miles. Both of these missiles are capable of sending enemy ships to the bottom of the sea, though the Tomahawk is more generally designed for land-based attacks. On September 15, a Typhoon system was deployed in Japan for the first time as the Marine Corps Air Station in Iwakuni. From there, it has the power to strike large parts of China, as well as sections of Russia's Far East. North Korea and Taiwan are also within range of the Typhoon's long-range Tomahawk missiles. China has not responded positively to this move, with Lin Jian, a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry, saying, "In disregard of China's grave concern, the US and Japan went ahead with the deployment of the Typhoon medium-range missile system in Japan under the pretext of joint military exercise. China strongly deplores and firmly opposes the move." US Marine Corps Lieutenant General Roger Turner, meanwhile, has affirmed that the Typhoon system and ongoing military exercises with Japan are vital in preserving peace across the region. By training alongside the Japanese Western Army in realistic, combat-focused scenarios, we sharpen the warfighting edge of our forces and present a clear, credible deterrent to any adversary who would threaten peace and security in the Indo-Pacific. It may be that the Chinese and Russian ships were deployed while the exercise was ongoing for two reasons. First, to gather intelligence about the various weapon systems being used and the kinds of exercises that the Japanese and US forces were involved in. This in turn could help China and Russia get a better idea of what America's capabilities are in the region in order to develop their own counter-strategies or fine-tune their future plans of action. Second, by deploying warships to the area, Russia and China may have also been attempting to send a message to both America and Japan, letting them know that they too possess some powerful weaponry of their own and will not be deterred or intimidated. Alternatively, it's possible that this is all part of a much bigger and broader plan, one that could change the face of the Pacific region and perhaps the wider world forever. It's well documented that Japan is part of the first and second island chains that are vital for America's island chain strategy to contain China and limits its power projections in the Pacific. The first and second island chains form defensive lines across the western Pacific, with numerous critical waterways and choke points running between them, like the aforementioned Miyako Strait, the Typhon Strait, and various South China Sea passages. The US has numerous forward bases stationed in key areas along the island chains, like in Okinawa, Japan, as well as in Guam and the Philippines. This allows America to maintain a strong and stable presence close to China, and should any conflict break out, the US and its allies could, in theory, use the first island chain as a sort of barrier, restricting Chinese naval and aerial movements into the Pacific Ocean. Now, part of this strategy also involves deploying missile systems, like the Typhon, along the chain to establish clear defense and deterrence networks, with the intention of making China think twice about any sort of military maneuvers or offensive actions in the region. China naturally takes a grim view of the island chain strategy, seeing it as a way for the US to potentially blockade waterways and choke off trade routes. Many analysts believe that China's recent push to expand and enhance its military is a direct response to this, and Chinese forces have recently made great strides to strengthen their position. They have, for instance, unveiled groundbreaking new weapons, like the DF-17 missile, which is capable of traveling at speeds 10 times faster than sound and conducting advanced aerial evasive maneuvers to avoid interceptor missiles and strike its targets with extraordinary precision. China has also been attempting to expand its sphere of power in recent months, like in June when it deployed 2 aircraft carriers on the eastern side of the first island chain defensive line. The carriers were said to have been conducting far-sea combat-oriented training, involving recon and early warning drills, maritime assault training, and other exercises. The US has responded by boosting its own defensive posture along the island chains, deploying anti-ship missile systems not just in Japan but also in the Philippines. In short, both sides are continuously strengthening their positions, with neither one showing any signs of backing down. By deploying warships close to Japan, China may simply be taking the next step of escalation, sending a message to America that it's not afraid and that it will continue to deploy its ships and other assets when and where it wants. And with Russia seemingly backing it up, the Chinese military sits in a powerful position, one that's clearly sowing seeds of concern in Tokyo. Indeed, Japan's defense white paper for 2025 clearly states, "The Russian military is continuing active military activities in the vicinity of Japan and its surrounding areas, showing its tendency to deploy the latest military equipment in the Far East. Russia's military activities in the Indo-Pacific region, including Japan, coupled with its strategic partnership with China, are posing a strong security concern." So, what comes next? That remains to be seen. It appears highly likely, if not certain, that China and Russia will continue to deploy major military vessels, including guided missile warships, in and around the waters surrounding Japan. It's up to Tokyo and Washington to make the right moves to ensure that those voyages remain peaceful, and that China doesn't, eventually, feel strong enough to make a much more aggressive move towards one of its neighbours. With so much tension and military activity in the area, it feels as though a US-China war is inevitable, and you can learn more about the key reasons for that in our recent video. Or for a hypothetical look at how a war in the South China Sea might play out, involving China, Japan, Australia, the US and other nations, check out our hour-by-hour breakdown. And finally, make sure to subscribe to our channel too, so you can find out exactly what's happening when it happens, with immediate and in-depth video updates from China, Russia, Ukraine and elsewhere.